Oh, DreamWorks' Over the Hedge movie is 18 years old now. It just passed their anniversary. How dare this movie be old enough to drink in the UK? That is an abomination. Even still, this animated movie is a bona fide classic. I really think, actually, in retrospect, it's hard to overstate how much of an impact I think this Over the Hedge movie actually impacted the industry and how good it damn well is. I was lucky enough to even see this movie in cinemas as a kid, blessed be my childhood, and I know so many other people that had the same experience. This is one of those movies that is so much of a classic, so well beloved in so many people's childhoods, that even still now, there are all sorts of memes being created. Even if it is the turtle's naked butt, but, yeah, you know, win some, you lose some. Now, this was made by DreamWorks over in 2006, which is a very different DreamWorks to nowadays, and probably, maybe, yeah, kind of some of their best. I think DreamWorks' real high points was back in the height of their trilogies, like Kung Fu Panda and How to Train Your Dragon, and Over the Hedge is a little bit before that era of DreamWorks, but even still, it is emblematic of the good times, for sure. Considering at the time, its rivals over in the parallel studio of Pixar was The Incredibles, Cars, and Ratatouille, it's, you know, quite a tumultuous time for DreamWorks, but they were really holding their own back in 2006. I mean, just before this was Madagascar and Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and then just a little bit later, you'd get Flushed Away and Shrek the Third. Who cares if the trilogies are the highlight? I think this is a great era in its own place. Maybe a little underrated on the Flushed Away and Wallace front, but still, DreamWorks were really flying high at this point, and that can really be shown when rewatching this movie. Yes, there's all sorts of brilliant, iconic moments that you'll remember, you'll love all the little bits, and they go through a lot of maybe classic cliched character tropes, but they're all so fun. But in a lot of ways as well, this movie ends up kind of being the architect of many elements, many elements in future films to come. Obviously, this might not be the very start of any of these examples, but as a very simple example, you've got Steve Carell making his upfront chops up in the animation sphere, which is still being seen today in the Minions and Despicable Me franchises. Whilst the idea of super speedsters dealing with slow motion, that predates pretty much everything Quicksilver that we know of, and is only really being rivaled by that one squirrel chipmunk in the Hoodwink movie. But even still, it's an entirely different representation. It's slow-mo with the character just dazily walking around. It's just great in a lot of ways that it really is a little bit ahead of its time, I could argue. The whole theming behind finding your family and, you know, being out for yourself, and also the incredibly rewatchable stark theme of capitalism and hoarding greed and nature versus nurture and all sorts of stuff. Have you heard the lyrics of the pop song related to this movie? Let me tell y'all what it's like. Watching Idol on a Friday night. And I mean the original one? Wow. What it's like, being male, middle class, and white. That is a rabbit hole to fall down that's gonna certainly break some of your childhoods in half. But in so many ways, this movie was just a perfect example of nailing your prompt. It's the kind of movie you can adore as a child, appreciate as an adult, and has the longevity to still be memed, still be referenced, and be some of the early architects of future tropes to come. Whilst at the same time, there are some other tropes in this movie that start to disappear around this age. The idea of the skunk that super stinks up the place? Yeah, that kind of fades away in the 2006s. Also, they do canonically plug her butthole with a cork. I can't believe they got away with that in a kid's movie, but there you are. Now, I, as a kid, very much adored this movie. Naturally, I tried to be the Steve Carell squirrel by the end of the movie, running out of the theaters as fast as I could, because I was just a goblin back then. Though I will admit, if I did have one critique from my poor 9-year-old brain, I actually kind of cringed in one moment. I'm really bad with pain and gore, I guess, especially back then. It's not even gore, but certainly pain. I cringed at the cage explosion finale, just because they were like, it's on full power now, and then the guy's like, this is gonna hurt, and then it's like sunbeams. I don't know. In my mind, I somehow had the sympathy to be like, oh no, the poor bear, and dude, I'd hate to be in that cage. Oh, I'm cringing from the idea that it hurts that much. But looking at it as an adult, it's just a stupid over-the-top laser beam that plants off of the planet. I don't know why I cringed at that. Thank you for making it halfway through this video. As per usual, do check below, and if you haven't already, subscribe. And let me know your thoughts on the Over the Hedge movie down in the comments or on our Discord server. I'm pretty sure I know your opinion, unless you're incredibly against the grain. But hey, it's their anniversary, so why not bring back some attention to it, eh? Keep the discussion going on our Discord server if you'd like to join with fellow-minded people in the community. And I shall now let you get back to my opinions on the Over the Hedge movie. And let me know of any other anniversaries that are popping up soon if you want. Still, yes, the passage of time is just so unrelenting that this movie is 18 years old now. You are aging. You probably have wrinkles at this point if you watch this movie as a kid. You're getting close. Maybe you got grey hairs by now. I know some friends of my age do. And really, I wish I could talk about more animated movies like I talk about Over the Hedge. I think as well, with it being the era of like the mid-2000s, all sorts of studios were trying to just push their own original idea to really get their own attention. Whereas the modern age is so interested in franchises and sequels, this was just outright something original and new, chucked out there with a theme, with a message, with a little bit of, political nudge over here and there, whilst really nailing all of the parts of original writing that come with it. It didn't need a sequel. It didn't get a sequel. Did it get a TV show? I wouldn't be surprised if it got a TV show, and that's okay. Yes, it did. No, it didn't. That's the fandom account. It doesn't need one anyway. It did get a video game, which is certainly an experience, I can tell you that. But what it was just good kids' entertainment at the height of kids' entertainment. I guess looking in retrospect, back almost 20 years, it really does feel like my childhood had the perfect era of animated movies to watch. I mean, it was only The Incredibles like a year or two before this. Back when children's movies had so much more depth to them and weren't just trying to grind out as much money as possible. The industry was new back then for animation. It had only been invented about 11 years ago, and I guess everyone was just scrounging to make the best that they could. In a movie all about junk and scrap, and a lot of wasted material, maybe this movie is a lot more thematically relevant in the modern age than it ever could be before. And that really is a rare thing to note. If a movie ages like fine wine, then that really is a true success, and possibly, in my mind, one of the biggest and best successes for DreamWorks. Yes, things like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish has probably made more profit and will have a lot more raving fans because it's franchise bait and also really well made. But just having a simple one and done that's just a great bona fide classic is really something I think we've lost. But should we really mourn that something like this has now gone beyond its time and never had a reintroduction? Or should we be happy that they even existed in the first place and we hold such cherished memories however old they may be? This is a movie I would love to do a full-on dissection with every single scene, but I also know that kind of content I don't think would do very well. Unless I make it 5 hours. Don't push me, I'll consider it. I did do a scene breakdown a couple years back. I think it underperformed, but, it's a damn good movie, and you don't need me to tell you that. You've probably seen this movie, and if you haven't, if you're too young, if you were born less than 18 years ago and you haven't seen this movie, watch it. It's probably dated in some places, brace yourselves, but I mean, overall, a brilliant success. DreamWorks at their best, and just a movie that deserves a drink if it really was a person that could age. Heck, if it could walk into a pub and was allowed to buy a drink, it could have the first one on me. And whether other projects were knowingly taking reference from Over the Hedge, or they just so happened to be an overlap of tropes that they were all leaning in with, it doesn't matter. Some of the soul of Over the Hedge is out there somewhere, diluted across all sorts of people and all sorts of creators as well. If I did choose to go into the animation industry and I was inspired by my childhood experiences of watching this movie, which I very well could have done in this hypothetical parallel timeline, then I'm sure there are real creators out there that have the exact same experiences. A movie that is this iconic, this classic, and this good is for sure going to impact the industry, whether we see it directly or not. And to see more movies like this and the soul and heart of it somewhere involved out there in the zeitgeist of the animation field is something I would love to see. Or at least know exists. This was a great movie. I can't believe it's already been 18 years. But that was our little retrospective review of Over the Hedge on its 18th anniversary. Good job, DreamWorks. You did good. Now I'm going to be part of the problem and say, get to work on the rest of your franchises. Where's my Shrek 5? For now, my name's been Daz. Thank you very much for making it to the end of this video. Do let me know your thoughts of Over the Hedge and any cherished memories you have associated over on our Discord server as well if you like. And I shall see you in a little bit. Oh, what a movie.